by the end of this year, by December 31, we hope and pray that there will be no more conflict on the African continent. We cannot say that is the case right now, but that is, you know, the aspiration. And you see, the other steps that have been taken, because you talk about self-reliance,
yes,
in that context. There's a peace fund that has been set up with the African Union, and as you know, in the African Union, a lot of the activities are funded actually by external, you know, partners. And so one of the issues was, you know, a more self-reliant African Union, that you can't really talk of, you know, real peace on the continent, silencing of the guns, if we're totally dependent on outside sources for funding for peacekeeping, you know, peace prevention, post-conflict interventions, and so forth. So, you know, they have, they require African countries to make contributions to that peace fund, and it's been very successful so far, and gives greater, you know, financial capacity to African countries in this context. And then there's an African standby force, you know, again, that's being put in place, so a security architecture to intervene, to either prevent conflict, to maintain peace, and so forth. So, you know, we're moving in the right direction. Is Nigeria ready now? You know, we still have our challenges. You know, we still have, you know, challenges in the northeast, security issues still, Boko Haram, terrorism in the sub-region, you know, of West Africa. So, so it's still very much a work in progress.
Okay, the AU Commissioner in charge of peace and security, in one of the media sessions in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa precisely, in one of the AU meets, you led the Nigerian delegation there. He commended the multinational joint task force put in place, and he said this will be the first time a country will initiate such, and it worked. Are we leveraging on this?
Are we leveraging on the multinational joint task force?
The advantages.
The advantages of it?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course we're leveraging on it, because it is something that is still ongoing, and is probably, you know, playing an important role in keeping at bay the insurgency threat, you know, making a big contribution to the insurgency threat. You know, we saw that when Nigeria was essentially alone, you know, coincided with the period when the terrorists, you know, occupied some portions of territory, yes, Nigerian territory, and they could easily, you know, retreat into neighboring countries and so forth. But with the multinational joint task force, this coalition of countries, it's much more difficult for them to, you know, to have these, to use all these neighboring countries as refuge, you know. So, and so, you know, together the coalition has really made a big difference. So yes, we're leveraging on the multinational joint task force. We are a big funder of the MJNT, and you know, we have a commander who is the commander of the force, and so yes, the answer is yes. It's an excellent initiative, and it's working very well.
At some point, you were visible and a regular visitor to South Africa on account of xenophobic attacks, and a couple of decisions were taken. Where are we with all that, in case there's a relapse? Just thinking aloud.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a regular visitor, but
You're very regular then.
I had cause.
You do your visits back to back.
I had cause to go there. Yes, you know, we had an agreement, you know, that we reached with South Africans in respect of you know, these xenophobic attacks against Nigerians, and you know, the idea was really to you know, form a nucleus, a meeting, a constant meeting, a committee that would engage with the Nigerians would have them as members, the Nigerian Union, and our representation in South Africa, together with the South African government and others. And it would be a kind of an early warning mechanism, you know, so that you're being proactive and not reactive to these incidents. And after Mr. President's state visit, there was, I think, greater political will, I would say, really, on the two sides, on the part of the two sides, and especially on the part of the South African government. And we, you know, touch wood, you know, since then we've noticed that things have been much calmer, you know, and we pray that it will continue.
What's the position of Nigeria took place just now? Attacks on Africans in China and recent developments in the US.
What are
Nigeria's position on it?
Well, on the attacks, well, on the experience of Nigerians in China, that was very unfortunate, you know, and also very surprising in many ways, because such was the warmth and the closeness of the relations between us and China, that it was difficult to understand and painful to see. You know, we made very strong representations to the Chinese government, and you know, communicated our displeasure and urged them to take very quick and strong measures to ensure that that did not continue, because what on the face of it looked like you know, blatant racial profiling and discrimination, you know. And then of course it all culminated in our now evacuating large number of Nigerians from China. Then with regard to the US, of course, that was horrifying to watch what happened there. And you know, of course, for a long time now, there have been complaints about the targeting of and profiling, racial profiling of African Americans in the United States by the police, and very harsh treatment and a lot of what you might almost call you know, executions, you know, by police, of killing blacks and African Americans and others, and it's deplorable and really very painful to see that, and of course there's been a global outcry in the case of George Floyd in particular, and it's really also for every country in the world to look at their policing, you know, and the use of force by police forces. I think in most countries around the world, you know, there are always at some point or the other issues with the police, And I think it's just a question of better training and all that. In the case of the U.S., there are, there are wider societal issues at play. Institutional racism in the U.S., housing, education, and jobs, and so forth. And, this is the result of, over about 200-year history,
Okay, that aside, sometime you were Mr. President's envoy to Russia, Moscow precisely, on a mission. Are we repeating from that?
Yes, we have, and subsequently, of course, you had the Russia-African Summit, which Mr. President participated in Sochi, in Russia. Yes, there are benefits. There are follow-ups with the Russian government in the security field, in the area of mining or steel, actually, development. As you know, the Russians helped to build the Ajaokuta steel complex, and so there have been a number of issues in respect of that. We want to revive this moribund complex and all that, and engaging with the Russians in that area. And so the level of engagement with Russia has risen, substantially.
What's the update? Nigeria, U.S. Binational Commission.
Well, we had the latest round in Washington in early February, and in all the areas, I think good progress is being made. Trade-wise, in particular, we want to see more U.S. investment in Nigeria. In consular matters, it's not as smooth as we would like. As you know, the United States added us as one of the countries where they blocked the path of visas that could lead to, citizenship and all that. So that's something we're working with them, hopefully to resolve and to get us off that ban. So on the consular side, there's work that still needs to be done. The security side, we're cooperating well. They've been supportive in our fight security challenges in the country. The humanitarian areas, they've also been supportive of us, helping in addressing our humanitarian challenges. But the consular one, I think, is really the difficult one. But otherwise, I think there's good progress being made in our binational relations.
Well, amid COVID-19, we saw you all around with the Jamaican High Commissioner, and indeed even the Nigerian High Commissioner to Jamaica was here. What was it all about?
It was the anniversary of diplomatic relations with Jamaica, and I think it was 50 years or so, or 40. I don't recall how many exactly.
So what was significant about that?
Well, it was just something we wanted to celebrate and to use it as a platform to increase the cooperation between our two countries, cultural cooperation for one, and Jamaica is the largest Caribbean country, I believe, population-wise. And, we have common roots, and would like to see, greater people-to-people, interaction and exchange. between our two countries, and common cultural roots too, to engage more with each other. And you know, this, you know, Nigeria is the largest black country in the world, you know, so every black country looks to Nigeria, you know, as the almost the big brother or even father, you know, and so a lot of the Caribbean countries also have strong cultural roots. You know, the Nigerian culture is quite strong in some of these Caribbean countries, you know, and so there's a natural, you know, affinity that is there, and natural desire to strengthen the bond between us, because that sense that you have common roots, and the same blood flows through our veins, as it were. So it was all in that context.
Okay. I remember in this program, you told me when I asked you, sometime Nigeria former First Minister Ojo Maduekwe, may so rest in peace, he initiated a particular diplomacy, I can't remember the name now.
Citizens diplomacy.
Citizens diplomacy. And you said you sustain that, and maybe by the time you are leaving too, you leave a legacy of sort, but a different slant to it. Are you working on that?
You know, yeah, when you come into office, to immediately be thinking of legacies is a bit difficult, I think.
You're on your fifth run now.
Yeah, you know, you are, you know, you have your the direction in which, you know, you want to take things forward. But you know, when I started, I felt that I mean, I looked at, as I said then, what Mr. President wants to do for the country, you know, and where we could leverage foreign affairs and the foreign ministry to achieve those objectives of Mr. President. And the economy and job creation was one that I thought that foreign affairs and the foreign ministry has comparative advantages that could be used, you know, to attain the specific goals on the economy. And because I felt that we have a physical presence in 100 countries around the world, and we can use our permanent presence in those countries, you know, to promote trade between our two countries. So I was favoring economic diplomacy, and what we wanted to do was to use those embassies to facilitate the matching, business matching, for Nigerian businesses and foreign businesses. So in each country, with each country, our ministry, through its embassy in that country, would be the matchmaker between all Nigerian businesses and potential foreign businesses. So, you know, we call it the Nigerian Economic Diplomacy Initiative, NEDI. And
is it still on?
It's still on.
Okay.
Yeah. We're having to tweak it a bit. It's taking a bit longer than we had planned, but we really felt that this was
maybe I'll take you on
win.
that when it takes a gestation period. We'll talk about that.
Fine.
The Nigerian Economic Diplomacy, right?
Yeah, Diplomacy
Okay.
Initiative.
Let's play politics now. The African Development Bank, the president, a Nigerian. A couple of days ago, Mr. President made a pronouncement on it. Are you driving that?
Driving what?
African Development Bank presidency. What's happening there right now?
Okay. Well, I assume you mean the issue of the re-election
Yes.
of the current
I
president.
didn't want to be too straight.
Aki Additional.
Yes.
Yes, who is going for re-election and running into some headwind.
Yes.
In particular from one of the what they call the regionals. So you have the members of the bank African members of the ADB. Then you have some countries outside Africa
Yes.
that are also members, because it's all based on shareholding within the bank. Now, what we're doing essentially, as you know, it all started with some whistleblowers who, you know, signed petition against him for, you know, governance issues.
We're aware of the whole story, just
You
a
know the
jump
whole
shot
series.
now.
Okay, very good. Sorry.
The whole story is the domain,
You know,
public
okay.
domain.
Very
So
good.
Nigeria's position in specific terms.
We support him 100%. You know, he was nominated for re-election, and we've been extremely happy with how he's performed. Actually, he's performed excellently. As we all know, again, it's in the public domain that the shareholding of the bank has quadrupled or whatever in terms of the reserves or whatever of the bank. So we are supporting him for election. Mr. President has reached out to other African countries. We're reaching out to other members of the bank, and so Nigeria is solidly behind him.
Yes, I remember in Ethiopia, I had a chat with you regarding the position of Nigeria at the International Criminal Court. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Has that changed?
No, it hasn't changed at all. We believe in a court that holds to account leaders, especially where it concerns the rights and human rights of their citizens. And there has to be a mechanism in place to hold leaders to account. An International Criminal Court is a forum that does precisely that. And you know, this government, Mr. President, believes in the rule of law and believes in you know, justice and rights of individuals and accountability of leaders.
Okay, now as a diplomat, 'cause that's what you are. I know you very well. Speak all the languages, and seeing you on the podium at the international space, you just play diplomacy. Calling you a career diplomat, looking at Nigeria, Africa, Nigeria, and the world. What's your position professionally?
My position?
Yes.
Nigeria.
I had a chat sometime with a diplomat, and I told him, what's the position of Nigeria and the world? And he said he was not too pleased with Nigeria most of the time, or African countries most of the time, depending on certain nations. So as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, what's your position? Africa and the world, Nigeria and the world, as events unfold?
You know, we want the best for our people. I mean, that is what, as a government official, as a diplomat, my job is to get the very best for Nigeria through its engagements with countries outside Nigeria. So all aspects, you know, be they economic, military, sports, culture, social, you know, the whole gamut. I mean, that's what you try to do. We want to bring prosperity to your country, to your people, to your continent through your engagement, your policies, and everything. And if it was easy, everybody would have done it by now. So it's not always easy, because other countries also have their interests, you know, and sometimes there could be conflict, or there could be a happy marriage of things. And sometimes there has to be a quid pro quo, you know, to get what you want. You might have to give, and so forth. So, so that's basically what it is. What you don't want, because we've looked at the history. If you look at our history, we've been colonized in the past. Some would say you had neocolonialism after that. You had slavery before that. And, you know, then there have been wars and so forth. So we've lost a lot. We've lost, you know, lives. We've lost a lot of our wealth and so forth, and our dignity and everything else. So we want to, because you were talking about depending on other countries,
Yes.
I think it's absolutely key, human beings are like animals, really, and very often you will find that might is right, in realpolitik, if you are weak, you are at the mercy of other countries. If you're weak economically, if you're weak militarily, and so forth. So you try to do everything possible to maintain your independence and, and to be strong, to be as strong as you can. And, but of course, no country is an island in this world. So you have to also depend on other countries. So you want to promote good relations with other countries and not to be fighting with other countries, because it becomes a lose-lose situation. And so our position, Nigeria, is, and Mr. President always says it, Nigeria, Africa, to be on good terms with your neighbors and those you share a space with. And we share space with about 54 countries on the African continent. And to maintain good relations with them, to promote trade with them. We have the African Continental Free Trade Area. And then with the wider world, the same thing. And we're succeeding because Nigeria has no natural enemy. We're not in conflict with any country in the world. And there are not many countries that can say that, and especially a big country such as Nigeria. We're now the 5th or so largest, most populous country in the world. So that's a major strength of our foreign policy, actually, that we are able to maintain good relations with countries all over the world, and at the same time maintaining our sovereignty and our independence and freedom of action and of thought.
Well, it was nice having a chat with you on diplomatic ties after a while.
Thank you very much indeed. Nice to see you again, and nice to be back.
That's it on Diplomatic Ties today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.